Perfect. So I'm welcomed here today by Jane, who is the CEO of Glimmer Wine. Glimmer Wine is launching on FrontFundr, opening up their equity crowdfunding raise for the first time to all Canadians. So we're extremely excited here at FrontFundr to welcome them to the platform, to welcome such an innovative product and a growing space into our investment community. So thank you, Jane, for joining us. Jane, I'm not sure if you have any words to start. Otherwise, we'll head into kind of some of our frequently asked questions that we've been getting about the campaign.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to jump in, and I'm really excited to be part of the FrontFundr platform because we really wanted to make this community open to co-owners. So at the end, we'll talk a little bit about FrontFundr, but for now, I'd love to get started with the questions.
Perfect. So I believe our first question, we'll just go over kind of what the company's about and just giving an overview of really what the company does. So the first one we're going to go with is, what is Glimmer's Wine mission and vision?
Yeah, I love this question because it's been 2.5 years in the making, and we really wanted to revolutionize the de-alkalized sparkling wine industry and create a luxurious, high-quality sparkling wine that tastes good and also looks great in the bottle. But our vision really is to become the leading choice for anybody that wants to celebrate all the moments without the alcohol. So a sophisticated beverage without compromising on taste and quality in any way, and really making it your sparkling wine of choice.
Great. Yeah, that's great to hear. And then I guess a follow-up on that would just be, what differentiates you from other competitors in the space?
A good question. So the space is growing, which is a good thing. And we do have a few competitors globally and within Canada as well. So what makes us unique is really, we've sourced our grapes. Our varietal is 100% Chardonnay. We have a Blanc de Blanc, and those grapes and other proprietary processes I can't share for competitive purposes, but they really offer a unique experience compared to traditional non-alcoholic sparkling wines. And we really aim to redefine, when people taste this, often we've had some comments about, are you sure this is de-alkalized? Sometimes we don't even tell people that it is, some sommeliers, and they are just blown away. So really, we really wanted to craft this premium quality experience. And that's what's really what makes us different, is the taste and the process that we went through to get that.
Oh, absolutely. That sounds amazing. And then I think now we'll dive a little bit into still the company, but more so just about, the people running the company, for example. So I was just wondering, who the management team are, the founders, and what are your expertise coming into this new venture, for example?
So as with any business, your management team and the founders are probably the most important, because a lot of people have ideas to start products and or services, whatever it may be, but we have a really strong management team. So about 2.5 years ago, myself and the co-founder had this idea to create a sparkling wine, and it's kind of evolved to be a de-alkalized sparkling about 2 years ago, with market trends and shifting in our own consumer behavior. So myself, I'm Jane Stoller. I'm an organizing expert. I have my own business where I actually help smaller business owners organize their business processes with 6 steps. I have my 3rd book coming out with Bloomsbury Publishing in May on my exact 6-step process to organizing businesses. So I love operations, distribution, organizing businesses. It's really my jam. And that's why when this business came, I love the creative side and the tasting and all of that, but it's really important that you still have somebody in charge who loves to organize and keep the team in that kind of space, from every aspect, from sales to marketing to distribution. I'm the expert at really keeping this business afloat in all aspects. So I have experience from, I used to be in the construction industry after my MBA, and I was a GM at several plants. And then I moved on to be in corporate, where I helped all globally ready-mix plants or concrete plants become profitable if they weren't, or we divested them. So a lot of experience from myself, and I'm just excited to be running my own business like I've been helping so many others run a business. My other co-founder, Marina Billinghurst, she is a true creative, and she's a creative professional with marketing experience. So she worked with a lot of big fashion brands in Toronto. So she has that distribution experience as well on the fashion side, but also a really keen eye for design. And that's really what I need too, because I'm not the creative. So us coming together, we had this vision, and it really was helpful to have that creative side and the business side together. Then we brought on Janet Helu, which is our rock star in terms of over a decade of experience in advanced wine education. She was working for a top company where she was selling high-end champagnes all across her network. And also before that, she was a food scientist. So she was integral in helping us make sure the flavor and the recipe that you are drinking with Glimmer is amazing. So we really have everything covered, from myself keeping everything organized in the distribution and operational side, to Marina on the creative marketing side, to Janet on the sales, and also being kind of the creator of the wine herself. So from that perspective, we have it all covered. I did also bring on a fractional CFO, Shanna Lisa Keller. She has her own business, and this is really because there's a lot of transactions that go on with this business. So having a CFO to manage the day-to-day and really keep us accountable, because a lot of big expenses go through as well. So our management team is pretty well-rounded. We do have a board as well that we report to monthly, but that's the core management team.
And that's great to see. I think a lot of FrontFundr investors are always interested to see, a wealth of experience and diverse experience. And I think, Glimmer has that covered everywhere from logistics to marketing to the wine aspect of everything. So that's very interesting to see for sure. So next, I think we'll just transition a little bit more to kind of what the opportunity is in terms of a big question we always get at FrontFundr, right, is what problem are you trying to solve, or what is the total addressable market? A lot of the times in venture capital is a word or a sentence we hear a lot. So I'm wondering if you can just, shine some light on that in terms of the non-alcoholic wine market. What does that look like? What is the growth potential for that market? And anything you can speak to regarding that.
Yeah, this is a good question, and I've been researching it for the last 2 years too. And even within that 2 years, it has changed. And a lot of the research has come directly from talking to consumers, talking to even liquor store owners about their DL supply. Has it increased? What's selling? But market research is really suggesting that it's going to be a $10 billion industry by 2027. And I believe that was a source from the Wine News business article that I have quoted. But it is just like anywhere from they were quoting around 7%, but now they're saying it's kind of like a 7 to 10% growth year over year. So that's just what the stats are saying. But from us, are just getting into the market, we're seeing a lot of people asking for it. So we're launching officially, actually tomorrow on October 9th is our official launch date, but we've already pre-sold a lot. And we've had liquor stores coming to us and saying, we need this product because people are asking for a de-alkalized wine. We've had grocery stores saying, we actually have so much wine. Some grocery stores in BC sell liquor, but they also really want a de-alkalized product. So we did both, and we have a lot of research on the back end from articles and kind of about the industry in general. It's hard to define sparkling wine or wine in itself. The market itself really talks about all non-alcoholic drinks in general. But when we talk to consumers and retailers, we're asking specifically about the wine. And what's interesting is they're saying that people are asking for beers and wines and less so much on the ready to drink side now. So good beers and wines, de-alkalized, is really what consumers, when we're out, boots on the ground, is what people are asking for.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. And then you touched on something that I also wanted to follow up on, was about kind of your consumers and your launch, for example. So I just wanted to ask, what are the traditional kind of consumers that you're going after? How do you reach out to them? What do those relationships look like overall?
Yeah, so we really wanted to make this a premium luxury de-alkalized sparkling. So we actually started reaching out to a lot of top tier restaurants, specifically in the Vancouver area. That's where our sales team had a lot of networks. So we wanted to make sure it was trusted by kind of top wine directors, top sommeliers, top restaurants, and get their flavor, because we know that that'll trickle down to consumers being like, where do I get this? I need this. So we started trickling that out as soon as we bottled. That was 6 weeks ago now. And the top restaurants and some in the Michelin Guide have picked this up, where some of them have never even had a de-alkalized on the menu. So that's where we started. We really wanted to hit that kind of luxury market, making sure that they approved our product. And then also going to the natural place where then consumers would buy de-alkalized wine, starting at kind of private liquor stores. We have that in British Columbia. And also there's a lot of stores that only sell de-alkalized products or non-alcoholic products. There's 2 in Vancouver that have reordered already because their shipments have gone low. And the big one will be grocery stores. So we're in talks with them as well. Because we are a food product now, there is a bit of a process to get into grocery stores. We have rigorous testing procedures and whatnot. But that's where the consumer will go daily to get their sparkling wine if they can. But we're happy to get into those premium restaurants to kind of let people know we're there and also educate the staff on this is our product, when it can be served, how to serve it, and also how to talk about it.
Great. And then you also mentioned something that I also wanted to follow up with as well, just about your rigorous testing. I wanted to ask, how do you ensure, let's say, the quality and the taste of the wine, to make sure it's consistent, to make sure it's up to standard with, your supporters?
That's a really good question. And getting into this, everybody's like, oh, you're so lucky you don't have to deal with the liquor board. And yes, that's true. But we have to deal with Canadian food standards. And once we get to the US, we'll have to deal with American food standards. So we do have to have it's called a HACCP license, or the production facility does. And we have to be CFIA compliant. So we've learned a lot. Luckily, Janet on our team is a food scientist and has her degree, and also has to keep uptake every year and courses to make sure she upkeeps her certification to make sure that we follow those standards. So it includes everything from tracing the product. So if it comes where grapes are sourced, it has to be traced. They have to be tested on site. We have to do an accelerated test once they arrive to make sure shelf life is okay. We test at our bottling supplier, which does have its HACCP license for us, which is a food safety license. They're also retesting once the wine product arrives on site. And then every 3 months, we are testing for shelf life stability, which is required by the CFIA program. Also, the facility itself to bottle in had to have kind of like an audit done to ensure that it was compliant to get its license in the first place. So it's a lot more than I thought on the food side, but everything we've done, we really wanted to be compliant, and we'll continue to do that with our team. And we also have a food scientist or a food consultant that helps us, especially with regards to the labeling had to be different. So yes, we really wanted to make sure we're quality control compliant on that side.
No, absolutely. And then another question, just kind of based off that, is just kind of in terms of what are the quality standards that your products meet? I don't know if you have some specific examples or just overall. Sometimes we get that question from investors as well, just looking for kind of what is the seal of approval almost that your products meet in terms of quality?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And again, it's just making sure we follow those HACCP guidelines, CFIA, and FDA guidelines. Those are really what we need to do in terms of food traceability. On the other side, for us, it's really the quality control of like the taste, and that is where we had to make sure we were there. And the way that's transported, the way it's bottled, from taste, and just following those federal or guidelines for us. Again, HACCP, CFIA, and FDA when we go into the States.
Absolutely. And then a bit on that question as well, or you just mentioned, the different tastes. So I'm just wondering in terms of, are you looking at launching new products or new innovations soon, or is that coming down the road, or what are you focusing on the short term, long term, just anything about, the different flavors and tastes that you're working with?
Yes, I don't want to give away too many of our secrets here, but Janet, our wine scientist, is always excited for new varietals. I'm on the path that we need to have one consistent product. So when you host a dinner party, when you're going to an event, when you are at a restaurant, you might have a favorite champagne or Prosecco, Veuve, or Dom, whatever it is that you reach for or that's on your table. We want Glimmer, our Blanc to Blanc, to be that consistent product that consumers can always get. And that's really important to us. So we may have different varietals down the line. We may be working on them already, but we really wanted to perfect and have a consistent product, and that really be our shining kind of the shining star that everyone knows they can get, can have it available. It always will be that consistent taste, consistent quality, look of the bottle. But yes, we are working on different varietals. De-alkalized wine is a bit difficult to perfect. Others that perhaps don't have bubbles in them or sparkling, or that are red wines, have been very difficult for many competitors to achieve. But It will come, but we really want to perfect what we have and meet our sales targets with that.
Right. And then it's actually a perfect segue. You just mentioned sales targets. I wanted to kind of transition over to sales since, again, that's a big question that investors often have, right? Is in terms of sales. How will you, get out to those potential consumers? I know you've already touched on it previously, just in terms of those distribution channels of working with different, people that work in the space. So I'm wondering, just in terms of if you have any other comments, I wouldn't want you to go over again those distribution channels, but how will you expand those, for example, and grow what you already are working with?
Yeah, we're doing internal distribution right now, or internal sales, I should say, to get our distribution out. So the premium liquor stores, restaurants, online, our direct-to-consumer platform will be up within 2 weeks of this recording. So we wanted to make sure that direct to consumer is also available throughout Canada, and strategic partnerships with liquor stores and non-alcoholic stores. But the expansion strategy is really key, and that's where we really want to expand beyond kind of Whistler, Vancouver, Victoria, BC in general, and we want to head to Canada. And that's where we're going to really need some volume to the larger stores, to the grocery stores, scaling and targeting those strategic kind of larger volume placements where people know they can get Glimmer. So that's kind of our expansion scaling strategy. Right now we have internal sales, but we are looking at a few, perhaps agencies and partnerships too. Many have reached out to us, but we want to make sure they're the right fit as well, because we have a pretty strong internal team too, and we're going to grow that too, to make sure we can supply in Canada and then head to the US.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that covered a lot of what I was looking for. And then I know you were just touched on, your scaling strategy and just in terms of distribution. I was wondering a little bit more on the strategic side as well, in terms of what does your marketing and branding look like? What are you currently doing, and what do you foresee yourself doing in the future as well regarding the brand?
Yeah, and Marina and myself both really love marketing and lifestyle marketing, and we both have brands like that prior. So we're really kind of targeting those health conscious lifestyle influencers, social media campaigns that are targeted towards that. We are hosting the Glimmer Ball on October 10th, which will be over by the time this recording is out, but where we're having about 350 people roll through everything from media to restaurant staff to kind of curious potential consumers and investors. But we're really increasing the brand awareness on this. We want to get the brand out there through collaborations. We're doing a lot of even galas and social campaigns and strategic PR efforts. So getting that out there, we're encouraging a lot of content marketing we're doing, where our Instagram the engagement is phenomenal. So that's kind of our main social media platform. Our website's also really SEO optimized. So from a tech standpoint and the content, social media, to also just collaborations, partnerships, getting our name out there and having some, advocates, whether it be investors from FrontFundr as well, to also influencers and just people that really love the product.
That's great to hear. And then another question that's often, very sought out after by investors, or they're always curious about, is, like you mentioned, those partnerships, collaborations. I was wondering if you have any details about that. I know you obviously are probably working on them, and you might not want to spoil everything before it comes out. But if there are any details you could share about some of those partnerships or collaborations that you believe might get people excited about the brand.
Yeah, well, on West Coast focused, we are kind of working and sponsoring a few large galas. Mamas for Mamas coming up in October, that has Caitlin Bristow, Jillian Harris, and Birds Papaya. So there's a lot of influencers that are going to touch, taste, be around Glimmer, and also the audience there. Also a few events in Vancouver, the Ordained Gala in Whistler we're sponsoring. So those are bigger kind of sponsorship partnerships. At more of a smaller level, a lot of de-alkalized markets that we're kind of working with to be our kind of preferred partners. Sensorium is one of them. So they have a really big reach in Canada, and we're doing a lot of kind of content creation with them. They have a really big influence already in the de-alkalized space with premium products. And also a few pretty celebrity influencers that we have we haven't brought them fully on board yet, but we hope to have them in the next few weeks. That'll really help just showcase the brand. And we really want people who have the intentionality behind it. We want people who are, perhaps have stopped drinking or just want an alternative, or who have that space of people who will want to share Glimmer with. So we do have a few really exciting brand ambassadors coming out, but I can't say their names yet.
No, that's perfect. And we'll see those partnerships that are announced that you just mentioned right now. And it's a good teaser as well for everyone else to stay tuned for those other partnerships that are coming.
Yeah.
I do want to transition a little bit away from the company now, more into the investment opportunity. So a question that we often get as well, which is, largely drives kind of the scaling of the company and the growth of, let's say, the price per share and things like that is often tied to revenue. So I was wondering if, you can talk a little bit about the company's current revenue streams and where you see that going in the next few months and even year.
Yeah, so the current streams really are direct kind of or wholesale sales, I should say, to our wholesalers. We are going to have direct to consumer all across Canada within a few weeks. A lot of the wholesalers also have online sales and venues and hospitality businesses. So that's, again, restaurants. So that's the current revenue streams. But we are this is our first batch, and we are going to be planning kind of to hit the larger chains, which will be a volume-based buyer within the next few months. And that will really help with the revenue streams from a volume perspective.
Perfect. And then tied a little bit to revenue as well, right? It is always about managing expenses, especially as you scale up operations. It's hard to not balloon those expenses, obviously. So I was wondering if you can talk about, what are your costs and what do the margins look like in your business so far?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's challenging when we start a business because the margins aren't that good at the very beginning because I haven't got my costs optimized. We did a small batch the first run, which is just over 10,000 bottles, which might sound like a lot, but that is the most expensive batch we will ever do. From now on, we're going to be getting a much healthier margin and be in line with typical kind of premium dealcoholized brands. And getting that volume out will really help everything from the wine itself, the raw materials, to the packaging and distribution, while still maintaining that quality. So we do have a good margin, I'd say, but it's going to get a lot healthier once we reach that kind of scale, which will be the next batch. And I always say this is the most expensive batch that we'll ever do, is the first run, but we needed to do it for quality control and to get our first bottles out to where we wanted them to go. But really, this is the numbers drastically, even so much as 20%, they decrease in terms of costs once I hit my next batch numbers in terms of scale.
Perfect. So I think that's where we'll expect the company to go in terms of investors, optimizing, like you said, those costs, those improving those margins and just growing revenue overall.
Yeah.
So a little bit, again, tied to the investment opportunity overall. So you are raising funds on FrontFundr. You're raising funds, from your community, as well as I'm sure you're speaking with high net worth individuals and other firms and things like that. So we were just wondering kind of what do you plan on using the funds from the campaign to do with the company?
Yeah, and we really liked FrontFundr for a number of reasons, because we wanted kind of an equity crowdfunding platform. So instead of one large investor, we really wanted to go out to a lot of different investors to show this opportunity and have you be part of kind of a co-founder with us. And the funds raised in this round, the 250,000, will be used for really production capacity, getting our next batch out, and increasing those distribution channels with agency and sales. So I'd say raw material sales, and then some plans as well with an operational scaling on the distribution side for logistics. But those are really the top three ways. We have a great team. We have the capacity on team side, but we need more support on materials, getting to those big distribution channels with sales, and also a little bit on logistics support.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And then are there any kind of specific milestones that you want to mention as well, in terms of, as you mentioned, you're using the funds for those different buckets, but is there anything specific that you do want to hit in the next 6 months, year, 2, 3 years?
Yeah, so I say originally we wanted to double our production, but now we're actually going to quadruple that based on kind of the pre-orders coming in. So we'd really like this funding to be used to kind of make sure we can hit those at least double production within the next kind of 3 to 6 months, and then double that again within 6 months. So that's kind of the impact of this financing route, is we can really grow, and there's so much interest in the pre-sales, but we don't want to, we want to pre-sell to the larger distributors, but we have to make sure we have the production capacity and the materials to do that. That's why we're doing this launch at this time, so we can kind of scale faster within the next 3 to 6 months versus a year or 2 years.
Yeah, that's no, great to hear. And then a little bit of a topic that we often overlook, but is important to mention, is kind of about risk. So, you know, you're using, like you mentioned, FrontFundr, who we're registered with the Canadian regulators. You know, we work very closely with them to stay compliant, and your raise will obviously be compliant with Canadian standards as well. So I'm wondering, just in terms of if you see any risks, for example, for your business or the industry overall, that investors should be aware of before they make the investment.
Yes, for sure. As with any investment, there's risks. And I think with our business specifically, there is a lot of, I think there's going to be a lot of market competitors coming out, which is not a bad thing all the time, because we're going to really keep our focus on quality and being premium and that strong branding. So as new market entrants enter, we really want to keep that. It is a high barrier to entry to get into this business. There's a lot that's involved. Unless you already own a winery and a very expensive dealcoholization equipment, which some do, it is very hard just to get into this business. So that is kind of one of our strengths. Overall, looking at the industry itself, consumer preferences, I don't know where they're going to go. They are trending to, you know, non-alcoholic, dealcoholized. A lot of people have reduced their drinking. Even the younger generation, we're finding, you know, even for grad parties and for nightclubs, they have been asking for this. So it's an interesting trend, but I don't know if that consumer preference will stay or how long this will go. There's a lot of information we're seeing, you know, how cigarettes were once very, you know, they weren't promoted as bad, and now they are. And will alcohol trend in the same way? Of course, that'll be good for our business, but we don't know.
Perfect. And then another question I had, but I think you actually covered it really well, was about mitigating those risks. So I don't think we'll have to cover it again. I'm wondering more so, again, if you can just speak to any of the challenges or risks that you've already faced that you want to, you know, tell investors about. How did you overcome those risks? Anything like that, kind of a personal anecdote almost about a risk or a challenge that you've already faced and overcome.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I thought it would be a lot easier, as we all do when we start businesses. It's usually 10 times harder and 10 times more expensive. But one of the biggest challenges was really just the, you know, sourcing and being able to get our process perfect, because it's sounds like it's easy to take a really good wine and take the alcohol out of it and then sell it, but it's not that easy. And there was a lot of complications during the process, everything from kind of the new regulations we had to deal with, from even if when we go to the US, different label requirements, different testing requirements. So it's a lot more complex than just removing alcohol from a bottle of your favorite wine. And I also think that it's really important that we also understand kind of dealcoholized versus non-alcoholic. So that was also a challenge that we're still trying to overcome in educating consumers. So dealcoholized is really when you're removing that alcohol. There's a few different ways to do that, but you're still having, the wine still goes through the exact same process it does to become a really good wine. Fermenting the grapes, all of that is in the winemaking process. So it's a challenge to then educate the consumer. Where non-alcoholic could just be juice mixed together, or different items, sugar, juice, whatever it may be. So that's also been a challenge to kind of educate consumers. And I think it will continue to be, because we really want to make sure that we're talking about the standards of how this is really a premium wine, and how it's not an easy process. And again, might be a good thing, because not everybody's getting into the business right away, but it was definitely a challenge that myself and all of my team had to overcome.
Oh, for sure. And I think that early mover advantage that you mentioned will definitely help the company in the future as more people, you know, enter the space. But I also want to talk about kind of, you know, a large question that we get, a very shiny and bright question. If I had to characterize it in terms of exit strategy, and, you know, investors realizing a potential return. Obviously, nothing can be guaranteed, but just want to ask you about, you know, what is the company's long-term vision? Where do you see it going, and where do you see kind of the exit options? Which exit options do you think might be available, or which are you targeting? I know, again, it's very early and nothing can be guaranteed, but just if you can speak to the long-term vision and just overall the options down the line for the company.
Yeah, I knew this question was coming, because I think as an investor, it's probably one of the most important. You want to know when your money comes back to you and how long. So we are hoping for that 1 to 3 year exit plan. We could do this a variety of ways, depending on how dominant of a player we become in the dealcoholized space. We could do this. We could acquire companies. We could do more partnerships. I don't know, even IPO and reach a critical mass. But really, we are thinking that if we stay focused on our growth, it is possible that we will be acquired by a larger beverage company. There is a few that have acquired a few non-alcoholic brands and the really big ones. So that's where we're kind of trending, and that we want to be on their radar for the 1 to 3 kind of acquisition. So that's where we're saying that 1 to 3 could be 5 years, and maybe further funding rounds if needed. But we do know that our valuation will continue to grow as sales come in, as we grow, and as the market demands us.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I think at FrontFundr, like you mentioned, there's definitely possible that it happens within 1 to 3 years. I think most investors should be comfortable holding it for 5 years or longer if needed. Like you mentioned, there's always the potential for future financing rounds and things can
Yeah.
change, but it's see, yeah, the different options in terms of, if you scale up enough, there's an IPO. Otherwise, acquisitions have already taken place, so there's precedent for it. So that's good to see. And then something that you mentioned right at the end as well that I wanted to tackle is just about the valuation. So again, another question that investors often have is just they love to hear perspective on how you came up with the valuation. So we're looking at about $2.5 million valuation. It is, for an early stage company, it's kind of what we see at FrontFundr. But just speaking to how did you get to that number, or what's the methodology behind it? People are always curious about that.
No, this is an important question I need to address because it's a combination of factors, and that includes kind of the strength of our brand, our premium product offering, the growing market potential for non-alcoholic beverages, and the value of intellectual property. That includes 2.5 years of this R&D to develop this high quality premium dealcoholized sparkling wine. So while I say pre-revenue, but we're already revenue now. I'd say pre-profit stage right now, but we're already we built a solid foundation, and it's a business that is running. We have all the pieces in place. And additionally, like our team's proven track record, we have the right team in place to make sure that the marketing, sales, and operations does what we say it's going to do, and that we exceed this valuation. So again, 2.5 years of intellectual property and R&D is a big one in this.
No, definitely. And I think that's something that's often overlooked, right? Is that you didn't just start from day zero and magically start, producing bottles. There's a lot of time and effort that's spent, and that's kind of baked into the valuation. So I think that definitely makes sense. I think that's pretty much the majority of the questions that I had that we've been receiving from investors. So I think I'll just hand it over to you, Jane, for if you have any closing remarks, anything else that you want to mention that I didn't ask that you want to get into a little bit further. Otherwise, yeah, just a closing kind of remark from you would be great.
Yeah, and I think I would love to ask you about FrontFundr, because when I was looking to say, okay, where are we going to do an equity crowdfunding platform, FrontFundr to me is one of the #1 in Canada. It's really regulated. I love the platform. I've invested in a few companies on the FrontFundr platform, so I'm really well versed in it. But just if you're coming to the platform for the first time, how does somebody go about doing a smaller investment or a larger investment? And just maybe can you speak to FrontFundr a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with kind of the back half of that question in terms of what FrontFundr, who we are. So like you mentioned, we are Canada's leading equity crowdfunding platform. So that means we are registered as an exempt market dealer in Canada. It just means that we're allowed to process investments. We work very closely with the regulators, like I mentioned, to stay compliant, to make sure that everything we do is in conformity kind of with the regulations. We've been around for a few years, so we do have a track record, of over 175 different capital raises, over $200 million processed through the platform. We work very closely with a lot of our US counterparts as well to just kind of innovate and make sure the platform is, offering kind of the best investment opportunities to investors. And we just enable, everyday kind of Canadians to invest in companies they believe in. So someone like you mentioned that believes in Drink Glimmer Wine, not only can they go to the store and buy the product and, support you through sales, but they can become a co-owner, a co-investor in the campaign and see the company grow and kind of benefit from that growth. So that's kind of what our vision and mission and focus is really just allowing everyday consumers to invest in the things that they believe in, to kind of take on that ride with the company that they want to go along with. In terms of the process, like you mentioned as well, so there is a campaign page for every single campaign. So you'll see, the Drink Glimmer Wine campaign page there. You'll have all the information on the company, the overview, a lot of the things that we spoke about today, all the legal documentation as well, of course, the terms of the investments, what is the valuation, what is the price per share, things like that. And then it's a pretty easy online process. So you just have to click invest now on the campaign page. You'll be prompted to, create an account and do some verification things, whether it's identity verification, email verification, things like that. All the questions we ask, again, are required by Canadian law. So if you see any of those questions, it is because, we want to stay compliant. We don't want to be, doing things underneath the rug, for example. We want to be upfront with everyone in terms of the information we collect, and why we do it is to stay compliant. So it's just an online investment process where you click that, the invest now button, you go through some verifications, you answer the questions, and then everything is done online. The investment document signing, which is, the legal documentation between Jane, yourself, and the investors, would be online. The payment would be online as well. And I think the number one thing that we offer as well is just kind of that support. So, if investors have questions about either the process or also the company as well, right? So if someone has a question for you, Jane, they can easily reach out to us via our live chat or our support email address, and then we'll reach out to you and say, hey, this is a question an investor had, and there's a Q&A option as well on the page as well. So that's another thing I wanted to mention, is that if you ever do have questions or issues, we're always available to help. If you have questions about whether it's the process or the company as well, they can reach out to us, and then we'll redirect that to you, Jane, or you'll see it on the Q&A page as well. So that's kind of what FrontFundr does. That's what the process is like. Again, it's never too complicated, and we're always here to help if there are questions or issues. Other than that, I think I'll mention as well. So again, it was great having this conversation with you, Jane. Just for if there's anything else you want to mention to investors, or anything that anything else to mention as well.
Yeah, thanks for that FrontFundr update. I think it's nice to have kind of an organized way for people to be invested in companies they believe in. And that was our whole mission of going to FrontFundr and doing this raise. We want to really get our tribe to be co-owners with us. And if you really believe in our brand, the mission, or if you just love Drink Glimmer Wine and you want to be a part of us, that's why we're here on FrontFundr. And I would say I'm not forcing anybody to invest with us, or we're not pitching any large investors now. We're really we're going to use the money for the strategic growth, but we do really want that that feeling of you invest, whether it be 500 or 10,000 or a larger amount, that you were on this journey with us. And we'll keep providing updates too via FrontFundr, and also on our newsletters as well. And I think in the next few months, we'll probably do a similar interview style with some updates, but we really want to be transparent with our community as well, and our co-owners. But we're just excited to meet you and get you on board, and hopefully do some great things with your investment, and for you to keep enjoying Glimmer Wine.
No, that's great to hear. So like you mentioned, I think everyone can, navigate to the campaign page, see everything for yourself, and just stay tuned for additional updates coming down the line as well.
Perfect.
Overall, though, I did want to, again, thank you, Jane, for your time. I know you must be super busy, like you mentioned, scaling this company up. So it's a pleasure to have you kind of on this platform to share all these this kind of inside view of the company. So again, thank you so much for your time. And if anyone has questions, they can easily reach out to myself or to you directly, and invest in the campaign or ask anything that they have to ask about.
Yep, perfect. Thank you as well for your time.
Thank you.